that, Satan?
It's what let's look at it the other way. What was it about Jesus that made him so different from every human being that ever lived? Because he epitomized selflessness. Everything about Christ was about everybody else. He died on the cross to pay for our sins while we were yet sinners.
Certainly.
And so the opposite of that, selfishness, where you put yourself ahead of everybody else, that is as evil as it can get. And that's what you see in our government. And so the whole system of patronage, where both Republicans and the Democrats do it at the top, right? It's the same people, right? And all they do, the only real fight that they have, I mean, the stuff that goes out in the public, they have to fight over the issues so that they can, keep their
look good.
They look good, but sitting around, around the tables at the big banquets and things like that, the biggest fight they have, really, it's which set of cronies is going to have control of the public treasury next, right? That's really what they fight about, because once they get their person in, whether it's Coakley or Baker, that person is then going to be able to give all the plum positions, right? All the contracts, all the, that's what being a governor means in today's America. It means having the ability to direct the flow of public money into the hands of your friends, right? Crony capitalism.
Sure.
That's what's going on. That's organized crime. And that's, who can stop something like that? Somebody who is immune to that kind of political corruption because of their lifestyle.
Is this happening under Trump? I mean, I don't see it. Usually, you and I grew up knowing that how presidents are and how the elections are. We always know that they always hand various jobs and various agencies to their supposed friends or whatever. Early in the Trump administration, a lot of that didn't work. Some of the people that he brought in from his business dealing didn't work, so now he's got a bunch of generals.
I think that proves it, right. Look at what
and
Trump
he fired them all.
Right. Trump let all his enemies stay on, right? That's the opposite of patronage.
Right.
Right? He kept people on there that was his disadvantage to have them there.
And, well, here's the thing, and now we know that he's gone and fired them all. It's almost like he exposed them. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, see,
well,
folks,
that may have been a strategy, too.
That might have been a strategy.
Keep your enemies closer, right? But in any case, here we are in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is maybe the worst in the whole country for this.
Next to California, do you think? Or
it is in terms of organized crime being melded with government. And and the big one right now, the up-and-coming big income stream is the opioid crisis, right? Methadone clinics and all that. The dirty secret about this is they don't want these guys to ever get healed, right? Or cured.
It's a cash cow.
That's right. It's a cash cow. They want them permanently on government dependency.
You met Dr. Punya Kishore at the event. Look what they did to that guy.
Yeah, that's right. I spent a lot of time with him. In fact, I learned a lot of this stuff from him. I've seen his documents. What Martha Coakley did there.
He screwed that guy.
Is absolutely crooked. And
he did that Saul Alinsky thing. Put him in a box, froze him.
Right. They wouldn't let him out of jail until he agreed to give his medical license, even though he wasn't required to. Yeah, that was just really crooked.
This is the thing. Why?
And so here you got all these, Christopher. Here we got all these thousands of human beings enslaved to heroin, legalized heroin, and the drug dealer is the government of Massachusetts, because because it's coming in the form of methadone in methadone clinics. And who's profiting from all this? It's the medical labs. It's the real estate tycoons that own all the public aid housing. It's the predatory vulture capitalists.
Pharma. They sell Narcan.
Yeah, that's right. Big pharma. They're parasites.
What's that? What's the Congressman Ron Paul thing? Government creates the problem and then rushes in to solve the problem.
Yeah, except these guys rush in to profit from it. So here you've got people dying, literally dying, in order to provide an income stream. And what do? What do you have to have because of this? You have to have an ever-expanding number of public employees who always vote socialist.
Right.
Right. And a group
throw money at it.
And a donor class.
Sure.
That will fund the politicians to keep the gravy train going.
Okay, so you and I, we see this. We're able to see beyond and understand how this happens. You mentioned the donor class. How is it that the people who keep giving this money, how is it that they keep giving the money and don't say to these people, all right, I've been giving you millions of dollars for the past 10, 15 years. Why is this problem still here? Why is it still there?
Well, usually, if you simply follow the money.
Or is that part of the game?
Right, it's part of the game, right? That you follow the money, why do people give in the first place, right? Why do the ultra rich give money? Now,
tax breaks.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Or you know, there are people of principles. You know, there are people of genuine good principles, conservative principles that give money out of their wealth for that. And I think on the left there are probably some donors who genuinely believe they're social justice claptrap, and that they use the wealth that they have to advance what they think. You know, they're perhaps well intentioned, but there's just, for every one of those, there's at least another one that is using their money just simply as an investment to buy influence with a particular, you know, pay to play. Look at the Clintons.
Sure. Oh, God, yeah.
Have there ever, in the history of the world, has there ever been a more egregious example?
And to this day, even with Donald Trump, I love our president, but it's like, why so much evidence between Uranium One, this whole Russian dossier thing is blowing up in the DNC's face rather than Donald Trump, which we knew anyway. Why these two people are walking around free, I don't know.
I think that game. I think that there's a lot of stuff happening in that, and these things take time. And I think in the end, and it may be that Trump is just simply using the threat of what he can do to get concessions from them on other matters that are perhaps more pressing. Like
he's a master tactician. I gotta say that.
Yeah, he's a genius. I don't think I've ever seen a politician, even the current storm right now.
Well, he's not a politician. I think that's the thing.
Well, is he? But
he's turned into one. I know, but he's.
No, I don't think he's turned into one. I think that what is politics really? Politics is just simply the ability to. Well, politics is getting things done, right?
Yeah.
On behalf of the people you're elected to serve, right? Getting things done.
Certainly.
And in that sense, there's never been anybody quite like him, and he's just got them flummoxed. You know, he's playing them like a violin. And even this latest thing with
cheap fiddle, I guess is the word I want to use. Yeah.
With the S storm, you know the.
Oh yeah, shit show. Yeah, or shithole. He said.
Yeah.
It's internet, so one of the things you'll learn being on the show, we colorful vernaculars are easily thrown around here.
Sure, but what has he actually achieved by all this?
What did he made us all look at it?
Yeah, well, but what are we looking at? We are looking at this hand, right? Which is completely inconsequential.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Well, with this hand over here, he has just simply denied the left its immigration policy. That is that's like the biggest thing they've got. He basically led them to believe he was going to endorse it. Came right up to the point where he had to come through, and then instead of coming through, he creates this gigantic, meaningless scandal about profanity that the entire leftist world is apoplectic about.
Right.
And nobody's talking about how he didn't actually give in on immigration.
And one of the things I posited was that no one's really answered his question yet. Why are we doing this? Why are we immigrating these people from these countries? Yeah. Nobody actually tangibly answered the question.
And all the media are such culprits in all this that all the questions that should be asked, all the investigation that should be done, right? They just don't do it because they're propagandists and not.
Are you afraid of that if you run that?
Well, I know they're going to do it. I'm not afraid of it. I'm anticipating
it.
Right,
sure.
But I'm not afraid of it. This is just going to happen. you can't avoid it,
Yeah.
right? They're never, and until they're replaced, those journalists are replaced with real journalists,
Right.
right?
Really going after the issues and really
Right.
covering the story fairly and accurately, right?
There, we no longer have journalistic integrity in this country. You know, I was going to want to be a reporter when I was in 12th grade. I mean, 12 years old, 7th grade. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be, and even then, that was the beginning of the time when journalism was being sold as the way to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It wasn't about accurately reporting things, helping people be able to make decisions for themselves.
To change the
It
world.
was to change the world.
Right.
And that's what all the journalists now have come out of that mentality. It's all Marxist. It's the social. What is social justice? Social justice is just simply the value system of secular humanism, of Marxism.
Sure.
And that's what they're all social justice warriors.
And Flake, he was on the floor today, and he was going on and on about it. He was talking about democracy and that, you know, part of the free press in our country is very important. And he failed to understand the entire premise of why Donald Trump is doing what he does. When he told the guy from CNN, he pointed to him and he said, "Out." And I mean, I thought that was just absolutely beautiful. Well, you're right. What he's doing is he's putting these people on the spot. And while you have the Uniparty lambasting Trump about it, the rest of the people are looking at that and saying, you know what, he's right.
It's about time somebody did that.
The press is really bad,
Yeah.
and I believe in the free press if it's really free, and you're really telling the story,
Yeah,
and you're really talking about a real issue.
I'm a constitutional law attorney, and I'm about to do a series on the different constitutional amendments, first, second, etc.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
so my
I
mind
want
is,
to talk to you about something. Sure, keep
but
going.
my mind
I
has
got an idea.
been on the First Amendment, and that what's the most outrageous about what goes on with the press is that my right to free speech as an American citizen, as a Christian, is grounded in the exact same amendment as the right of the free press, and yet the journalists are using their protection under the Constitution to deny my free speech by suppressing what I have to say, by misrepresenting it. So in other words, they're engaging in abuse of their right.
Right.
And
The key word being abuse. They're abusing the right.
And by doing so, they're threatening the right itself. What happens if the population gets to the point where they say, you know, I am so sick of these media. We shouldn't have a free press anymore because it's not really free, right?
Could that tacitly be the plan in the background?
That might very well be. If you do not balance your rights with responsibility,
Sure.
if you don't exercise them responsibly, then you threaten them for everybody. And just like like the Nazis marching on Skokie, Illinois, right? You know, when you stretch the First Amendment to the place where everybody is going, should we really have a First Amendment, right? Should we really start cutting back
Right.
on what people are allowed to say? When that's just simply outrageous irresponsibility. But that was a tactic also.
Well, it's happening though.
Well, you know the guy that did that? You know the guy that did that?
The Skokie thing?
Yeah. That guy was a homosexual, a Nazi, that went to jail a couple of years later for molesting teenage boys.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then, so he was actually a secret lefty who was accomplishing something in that process that we didn't recognize, yeah. And Frank Collins was his name.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
and it's very important to, getting back to free speech, it's very important to investigate the story.
Yeah. And well, a lot of the stuff you aren't going to know. Like, remember the guy on the homosexual issue again? Remember the judge, Fawn Walker, that struck down Prop 8?
Yes.
The marriage one, right? Nobody knew at the time he was a homosexual too. He then resigns, comes out of the closet, and of course the media, who should have been simply raising the question, Should Von Walker have recused himself in that case? Because he had a personal vested interest? Not a single one.
Here's a great example, and you mentioned it on your website there. You'd mentioned, I'll just use the title, The Borking of Judge Roy Moore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another example of the press taking just that ounce of perception and running with it.
Yeah.
And folks, have you noticed all these accusers? They evaporated like a fart in the wind. They're all gone.
Yeah, that was the biggest scam. You know, we.
But despite the fact that their testimonies were being destroyed, despite the fact that the facts were out there.
Of course, the press won't do that. The press won't cover the things.
Again, it brings us back to that Saul Alinsky.
Right.
They locked him in a box and they froze him in that
look
box.
what happened to me. I was in my lawsuit. One of the elements of this lawsuit that suggested that I was a criminal against humanity was there was a guy murdered in Kampala, Uganda, who was a leader of sexual minorities Uganda, a homosexual guy, and the accusation was that he was murdered because I had generated this climate of homophobia and enraged somebody who went and murdered him.
Right.
They left that, and so I suffered for like a week after the thing happened. I suffered this incredible international accusation of, bashing.
That you were behind.
That I'm responsible. Blood's on my hand because I spoke against homosexuality in Uganda a couple of years before, and then the guy that did it got caught. Turned out to be a gay prostitute that the guy had bailed out of jail to be his live-in lover and houseboy. Right? You know that none of those media covered it. They just dropped the story, left the implication in place, and I continued to have to fight against that accusation, even to this day.
Sure.
I still have to fight against it, because nobody knows that it was a gay-on-gay
Right,
murder.
sure.
But that's what they do. Same thing with Roy Moore.
They dropped it. Once the election was over, boom, gone.
Journalistic ethics is in the toilet. It's beneath the toilet. It's in the sewer underneath the toilet. That's where we are in this country. Why? Because of Marxism, right? What's the value system of the journalists? It's social justice.
Sure.
What is social justice?
Sure.
It's the set of principles of secular humanism, which is the religion of Marxism.
And it's also the useful idiot scenario. Use them up the best you can, and then when they've used up their usability, disregard them, get rid of them, and move on to the next thing. Stalin said, what is it? Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. Now we've shown the crime, there's the man, send him off to the gulag, who's next? All of that disappears.
Yeah.
The story, the Judge Moore thing, disappears. Your story, the truisms of the story disappear.
It never touched. So I think the greatest fault, or really there's two places where ethics have really collapsed. That's in journalism and the judiciary. The judiciary is also infiltrated by the left. And for every liberal judge in place, who are the activist judges? It's the liberals. Why are they liberal? Because they believe in social justice, right? These are Marxists. They wouldn't call themselves that. They don't look like Marxists economically, but they're cultural Marxists, the Herbert Marcuse style. And that even at the highest court in the land, the gay marriage case, and the Obergefell v. Hodges case came down, right? That Ginsburg, in fact, I protested in front of the Supreme Court about this while the case was where we were waiting a result, or before they voted on it. Ginsburg and Kagan, and they actually performed same-sex weddings during the pendency of the case, right? This is the most outrageous breach of judicial ethics in the history of the nation.
A little conflict of interest there, folks?
It's an actual conflict of interest, not just a suggestion. You're supposed to recuse yourself even if there's the appearance of a conflict of interest. This is an actual conflict of interest, and Ginsburg even did the ceremony in the Supreme Court, right? So here,
Scott, why aren't there tanks lined up in Washington dragging these people out?
Yeah, it's because the people that have the tanks are on the other side. Yeah, but that's what we're up against when people of principle fail to stand for those principles and insist that the society follow them. This is what you get. that courage is what's needed to be able to deal with. And why is it so hard for Trump to deal with what he's doing? Because we waited so long. We had all that time from Ronald Reagan all the way up to Mr. Trump for the deep state to dig deeper and deeper.
Sure.
Those roots, the deep state roots, they go deeper than kudzu, right? They're
Kudzu. Yeah,
it's,
I know what
you know,
kudzu is. It is.
and
It's insidious.
yeah, and what do you do when you've allowed things to get so bad that all the institutions are in the hands of your enemy? The universities, right? The media, law enforcement, right? You know, I was in Chicago. I was speaking at a church, a church that's also a Christian elementary school. I was going to speak out there, and they didn't like the lefties out there didn't like that. They came in the middle of the night. They threw they wrote "Shut Down Lively" on this big paver. They threw it through the glass window into the school wrapped in a note that said, "This is just the beginning if you don't shut down Lively." Right? It was a threat. It was a terroristic threat.
Yeah. Well, it's all about
literally.
tolerance and understanding and
Right.
diversity. Remember that, folks.
So we went to the police. We did the whole thing. They wouldn't call it a hate crime. The media wouldn't cover it, and there was really no recourse. Right? So what do you do when the police, the newspaper, and the local
Nobody will back your
officials
play.
are all in league against you because they disagree with your beliefs, but the same beliefs that their grandparents held? Right? What do? You know, so you basically just simply have to realize that standing for the truth, speaking plain and clear, is gonna cost you, right?
It's
It could even
dangerous.
cost you your life.
It's dangerous.
But what other choice is there? Because when you reach the place where there's no one left with the courage to speak the truth, then everyone is a slave from that point forward.
What's that axiom? You know, I wasn't Catholic. When they came for the Catholics, I wasn't Catholic, so I didn't care. When they came for the gypsies, I wasn't a gypsy, I didn't care. They came for the Jews, I wasn't Jewish, I didn't care. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to care.
Yeah. Well, that's it. There we are.
Scott, give your website, give all your stuff. We've been on an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's great. It's livelyforgovernor.us. VoteLively.com is my blog, and you can contact me at votelively@gmail.com. And I'd like to hear from conservatives. I'm trying to build infrastructure here
Good.
for my campaign. So, any conservatives, the best way to reach me is just email.
Are you busy Saturday? We're doing the Trump Year in Review. We'd love
Would
to
that
have
be
you up
here
there.
in Worcester?
It's at Tang Dynasty in Leominster.
Send me the information.
Sure.
You got my email.
Great.
VoteLively@gmail.com. And I might be able to do that.
Good. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Kingston's coming up. We'd love to have you up there and
Yeah.
talk a little bit.
I think I'll be able. What time of day is it?
Noontime, but we will probably it's for the entire
Yeah, all right,
afternoon. So
I'm in.
even if you show up a little later,
I'm in.
that's fine. Great.
Yeah, good.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay.
gubernatorial candidate Scott Lively here at Ambush Studios, the Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk in Awesome Rock, KTNT Radio.com. Let's play a little tune and we will back out of here.